All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Everything's all normal again. We're doing this live Zoom again. All right, so 154, week 9, lecture 2. And in fact, this will be our next to last meeting. So, as we said in the lecture for last class, week 9, lecture 1, the 20th, we had said that our final exam was going to be on the 29th, that it would be 1 day only. So unlike the midterm, you only get 1 day. It will be cumulative, and we will not hold class that day. So I just want to make sure that I add that here. No class day of the final. Because I want to make sure, since I'm only giving you 1 day, that you have the class time to take it in case you need it. But let's go ahead and talk about some other details above that, and then we'll talk about the final a little more. I just want to go ahead and mention that. So my math lab's coming up, 6.2, 8.1, 8.3, they've all been finished, so they're all due. 6.2 is today, and then 8.1 and 8.3 are due next class on Tuesday, which will be, again, our last lecture. Excel 6.1 fund is due today, so we gave that to you a week ago. And then Excel 9.4, this will be our last Excel file. Excuse me. That is going to be due a week from today. And you'll notice that I said that's optional. So I'm giving an opportunity here. If you did not complete an Excel assignment or one of your Excel assignments grades were not up to your standards, maybe, or just whatever you wanted, maybe not necessarily a standard, it doesn't matter. But anyways, this is one that you can complete as a replacement grade. So if you didn't do the first one, but you've done the rest, then this would replace your first one. If you made 95s on every Excel assignment, except maybe the third one, on the third one you made a 60 for whatever reason, then this could be a replacement grade for that. So I just automatically will replace the lowest grade. Then 2 final quizzes, both video quizzes. Remember, we had mentioned that we were going to get 3 of those back to back to back. So video quiz 4 due Tuesday the 27th, and then video quiz 5 will be due on the 29th. So you'll have 2 assignments due on the 29th, the Excel file, which is optional, and then the video quiz 5 on chapter 9, which is due on the 29th. Now that video quiz 5 is not optional. All quizzes are mandatory. And then we have our project due on the 25th. I know a couple of you have been emailing me about this. I hope that you have been staying on top of this for the past month. Remember, the days that you're supposed to cover are specific. The details on how this file should look are very specific. You can get a 100 on this and have a pretty, not a super big Excel file without hardly any purchases, or you can get a 100 with having tons of detail and 400 purchases over this month. And remember that the point of this project is to have something to use in the future over and over and over. Now, because this is summer school and because of how our schedule fell, the dates for our quote month were a little more awkward. It was a little more like a credit card bill almost, because it was the June 25th through July 24th. I'm 99% certain. Whereas most people, when they're making their budgets, they're just going to do the month of July, the month of August, the month of September. So when you use this file to in the future, you're probably going to go ahead and just change that entire date column from being slightly awkward to a much more normalized. Oh, hey, just June 1st, June 2nd, June 3rd, da 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 da, June 29th, June 30th. So again, some quizzes, some Excel files, some regular homeworks, and a project all on the immediate horizon. Then our final exam is due on the 29th. That will cover chapters 1 through 8. So I'm not going to put anything from chapter 9 on the final, even though we are going to cover chapter 9. So that doesn't say don't do any of the homework. Again, I'm not going to make the homework for chapter 9 mandatory, but I still highly suggest that you practice it. I still highly suggest that you do it, because this is my favorite chapter. This is where we're going to use some stuff that we're going to be able to use again in the future. We're going to talk about retirement planning. We're going to talk about credit cards. We're going to talk about debt management, mortgages, lots of real world things that will be good to have a grasp on, that will be good to know how to use Excel to handle this stuff very simply, but also to give you formulas and websites with formulas built into them for you to be able to use really quickly on the fly when you're talking about this material five years from now and you don't have these formulas memorized or haven't used Excel in 5 years or whatever. So I want to make sure that you've got tools for success no matter what you try and use in the future, whether it's Excel, calculators, websites, anything like that. So final, chapter 1 through 8, 20 questions, 2 hours. So that portion is very similar to the midterm. It will be in my math lab, just like the midterm. It will be at the top like it was last time. You will only get one attempt on this. You have to submit your work in Canvas within 15 minutes last time. So make sure that you write your name on your work. Make sure you you number your problems. And again, you'll take at your quote leisure within that 24-hour period. If you take it late, it will not count. You will not be able to see it early. It will not be available early unless you email me and let me know you've got something crazy going on that day in advance. So again, we will not hold class the day of the final. And there is a review. There are 2 reviews, in fact. The review that you used for the midterm is still what you want to use to study chapters 1 through 4 for the final, because the final is cumulative. That review is in Canvas. And then to study for chapters 5 through 8, I give you a review in my math lab. Why did I do it differently? Because the material for chapters 1 through 4 is arguably more intuitive and less crazy calculator work. So I felt like everyone should be able to handle that without without the guided solutions. And if you need guided solutions, you go back to your homework problems for similar problems. Whereas chapters 5 through 8, everything is a little less intuitive. There's graphing involved. There's bigger, crazier formulas involved. So I just thought that it would be nice to have my math lab assignment for that, for most of those questions having the help me solve this type of stuff. You have formula sheets provided in Canvas. So you've got the conversion sheet you use for your midterm. You also have the big finance formula sheet, which I believe I've shown you. I know I've shown you before, but we're going to show you again in just a minute, as well as one of the other 2 details in Canvas for the final. All right, so without any more hesitation, let's go ahead and get it. I'll be in the chat if you have any questions.
Just going to one of my Canvas shells. Where are they? Must be further at the top. Here we go. So under reviews, that's where you find your midterm review. I also put an additional final review if you just really like the paper or pencil version of it with just questions and answers and nothing to guide you. This does have some chapter 9 stuff in it though, so just be warned that anything from chapter 9 you probably wouldn't see on the final itself, except very simple stuff. But your midterm formula sheet, which had those 1 or 2 conversions, and then this is your formula sheet for the 8 formulas, the finance formulas that looks like this. And today we are actually going to talk about at least one of these, probably 3 of these, maybe even 4, probably only 3 of the 4. So we'll get into these again, not necessarily going to throw them on the final, except maybe this one, but still nice to see. But I'll also just give you websites that can help you get these numbers either exactly or close in the case of annuities. All right. So when I was scrolling this, in the notes to share down here, which again, you were supposed to all semester be reading ahead of time, whether you were or not. The very last one is websites to help you with your finances. Again, I'm going to talk a lot about independent finance stuff over the next 2 days, a lot more ranting and raving on my side of things. And this is what that file looks like. So we just did our budget project, which I will have graded by Friday afternoon. I'm probably going to spend Friday morning grading all of those. If not Thursday evening, but I have too much to handle before then, unfortunately. Everydollar.com, mint.com, these are great websites just and do a monthly budget without having to use Excel, and it might guide you a little better along the way, and they're free. A credit card payoff calculator, which we'll look at later, a mortgage calculator, an annuity calculator, annuity being the type of thing where you invest in over and over and over to eventually retire on, not just put a one-time deposit into. Some websites that you can actually get annuities, and they're not usually called annuities anymore. We call them things like mutual funds, stocks, ETFs, bonds, whatever. So here's a whole bunch of different sites: Vanguard, Fidelity, E-Trade, Robinhood, Acorns, Webull. There's a new one out. I can't say it's new, but I've only recently heard of it. I'm always researching this stuff. It's called eToro, and you can actually copy other people's investment profiles. I know nothing about it, but it sounds interesting. I kind of want to go put 50 bucks in it just to learn it. Some of these will actually give you a couple free stocks. Some of them do these things like roundup, where if you go buy a $4.60 item, it charges you $5, and that extra 40 cents goes into your investments, which for a lot of people, that's amazing and something that would probably help you along the way. Nerd Wallet is an excellent resource for all sorts of finance stuff. Credit score calculation on the second page. We'll actually get into that hopefully over the next 2 days. Because like I said, this is usually a 3 to 4 class at hour and 15 minutes, hour and 10 minutes lecture, but I need to somehow condense it to 2, so it's going to come fast. Remember, there is a slow down button on YouTube, as well as you can replay it over and over and over. I am also considering making an additional video or 2 if I can find the time, and it may come after the semester is over and I can just email it out. But with just some extra helpful, math problems or just finance topics, things like that. But I can't promise on that part. All right, so let's get into it. Chapter 9. And where are we? Here we go. And you'll notice that in the notes to share, hopefully you already noticed that I do not do things in order. I do not go 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 9.5. Notice I didn't say 9.4 because we would skip 9.4. I start out with 9.5, debt, and there is a reason for that, because in our lives, we generally acquire debt before we acquire savings and interest and investments and annuities and things like that. So debt is usually the first thing we acquire, whether it be a car loan or student loans or mortgage or just credit card payments. Those are the first 4 things we tend to acquire, maybe at the age of 18, 22, 25, just depending on how slow or quick we get into things. Then it's later where we really start building up our wealth. Now, it's hopeful that you are starting both at the same time, but not everyone can. And again, I'm trying to do this as a broad discussion, not just for the top 1% or the bottom 1%. So there are formulas for these calculations, but to discard this, which you've already seen. So loan payment, boom, there's the formula for 9.5, dealing with cars, dealing with mortgages, dealing with student loans. Not credit cards though, credit cards are different. But this is your loan payment for your home, for your car, your boat, your home refinance, whatever, where the PMT stands for a monthly payment. So PMT is different from P. P we usually use for an initial amount, whether invested or borrowed. A we tend to use for a future amount. PMT is for something that we're doing every month or every week or every day or every year maybe. It's something that we keep doing over and over and over. So for a loan payment, this is what we pay every month, usually on a monthly scale. This value of annuity, these 3 formulas, which again, these are kind of like our investments. PMT is the amount of money you're putting away instead. So for a loan, PMT is what you're paying every month. For an annuity, for your investments, PMT is what you're investing each month. It still feels like a payment, but it comes back to you later and in spades. All right, so mortgages are the good kind of debt, because up here at the top I say there's good and there's bad kinds of debt. And a lot of people might want to argue with me over this. Mortgage is terrible debt. You're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to a bank over 20, 30 years, and if you refinance, you may pay 40 or 50 years. It's horrible for you. Okay, I see that argument. But also, if you don't do those bad things like refinance over and over and over and pay your house for 50 years, you just get a 30-year loan and pay it off. After 30 years, you don't pay for your house anymore except for taxes and insurance. And that is like, if you were paying $1,500 for a mortgage originally, now you're probably paying like $300 or $400 a month. That is an insane amount of savings. If you go live in an apartment or a townhome or rent a home, you're going to keep paying that $1,500 a month for the rest of your life. Whereas a mortgage, eventually you own that home, you have property, you have value. And that's not me just putting down renting completely. I love some aspects of renting. Renting, if your roof deteriorates, you don't have to shell out $10,000 out of pocket to replace it. Or if you have to put a new $2,000 bay window on your house, or your AC system kicks and that's $8,000. And let's see, your bathroom leaks and you have to replace the entire bathroom. And I am very much using real life scenarios. Maybe thumbs are pointing in my direction. So homes can be very expensive, and when you rent, you don't have to have these giant obligations that come up all at once. But that's also why I taught you how to prorate expenses, so that if you do go that homeowner route, you can put away $200 or $300 a month or $100 a month, so that when those things come up, you're not just going to get destroyed from it and have to go borrow $10,000 or borrow $15,000 or borrow $5,000. Hopefully you have your 3 to 6 month emergency fund or 6 to 12 month emergency fund, depending on what aspect of life you're at. And if this emergency fund idea, if this is the first time I've said it, please just Google, YouTube, look up this stuff. One of the biggest problems of the average American is they have less than $1,000 available for any kind of emergency. When those emergencies show up, problems. But I'm getting sidetracked. All right, so mortgages can be good. Renting can be good. Owning a home can be good. There's pros and cons to each side of things. Now, admittedly, these numbers are a little over a year old, and this past week I considered changing them, but I want to leave them because I think right now, in this specific economy we're in, where the mortgage rates are closer to 3 and 3.5% for a 30-year and a 15-year loan, and I said them backwards as to what you see on the screen. So a 15-year, we're going to be doing calculations with 4.25. I'd say right now it's closer to 3. For 30-year, we'll do our calculations with 4.75. Right now, it's closer to 3.5. And for maybe another 2 or 3 years, they might stay that low. I have no idea. I can't predict that. But at some point, they are going to come back up when our economy starts recovering overall. The stock market recovered, but the economy itself hasn't, because we still have so many people out of jobs. All right, so again, when we talk about mortgages, we'll go with 4.25, which, you know, if you don't have perfect credit, if you've got just okay credit, maybe that is the mortgage rate you're getting, or a 30-year mortgage, which is 4.75%. Now, most people get a 30-year loan, but some people go for a 15-year loan, and there's arguments for either of them, which we'll get into. So I'll show you the numbers with the actual math to the problem here in a bit, but let's just use the website to get everything done really quick at first. Mortgagecalculator.org. So you could just copy paste that, or you can just even Google, and I've been to the site a million times, you can see that. But if I Google mortgage calculator, first of all, Google has its own built-in mortgage calculator under a super simple template where you just put the amount that you're borrowing and your interest rate and your time, and then it will just spit out the payment. I'm a big fan of mortgagecalculator.org, which on this computer that does not have any kind of ad blocking on is down here, the 5th or 6th one. And that takes you to this site, where there's a few more things that you can put in. All right, so what do we want to see? Now, some of these things I'm going to ignore, like the property tax, the PMI, the home insurance, the homeowners association fee. We're going to just zero all those out to get down to brass tacks. PMI, this is principal mortgage insurance, which this is basically the bank not trusting you to make your payments until you have 20% in the value of your home. Typically speaking, different types of loans, that number changes. Military and doctors may be 10%. First-time home buyers, some of them, they always pay PMI. Some of them, they never pay PMI. There's a lot of different dynamics to this stuff, and please don't let that intimidate you. It's stuff that you can learn about by doing your research. And if you email me, I can point you in some good directions for that stuff. So again, we'd zero all of this out. Property tax, if you got a $200,000 home, you're probably paying about $3,000 a year in property tax, maybe less if you're not in Portsmouth. PMI, you're probably paying about $100 a month, again, on a $200,000 home. Home insurance, about $1,000 a year, which comes out to about $100 a month, $80 a month, just depending on a lot of things. Everyone can hear me, right? Okay, good. Just making sure. All right, so we were going to take a $200,000 home. Now, you might, where am I? Here we go. Maybe the house costs $220,000 and you put $20,000 down. A down payment is typically done, and that just helps reduce your mortgage a little bit. It also makes the bank trust you a little more. Most homes, you're going to need 3 to 5% down in this economy. If you can put down more, most people would suggest that you do more, but I'm not going to get that deep into things. You may be able to get a no down payment home. Not my personal favorite thing to do, but if that's all you have to do, then that's what you do. So we're going to compare this 15-year and 30-year mortgage, and let me just kind of delete the interest numbers and the payment numbers. So this is what's assigned. We got a 15-year mortgage. We're going to pay 4.25% per year. $200,000 is what we're borrowing. Now, mortgages are always on a monthly basis. So with the formula we'll see later, the N would be 12. But these are the only numbers we need for the website. So we're going to borrow $200,000 with a $0 down payment. And again, that could have been a $220,000 home and a $20,000 payment. All right, so we can see the loan amount, the interest rate we're going to make. We're going to do the 15-year first at 4.25, and the loan term 15 years. You can put this in whatever start date you like. I'm not going to worry about that. And then we're going to click calculate. We get all these graphs, which I'm not going to overanalyze. There's so many ads on this. Oh my Lord, I'm gonna put an ad block on this person's computer. And you can see that you get a monthly payment of $1,587.89. And we can see that over the 15 years, we're going to pay $70,820. So if I hit undo enough, you can see both of those numbers pop up. There we go. So a payment of 15 something. Oh, I still the insurance in here, 0. Calculate. So now that's going to go down because this is not including insurance. So 1504.56. This number is just rounded up to the whole dollar because that's typically how our payment calculations are done in a quantitative reasoning class. Also, the Google website would round to the whole dollar as well. And you can still see that you're paying about $70,820. This is $70,900 because that was rounded to the nearest whole dollar. And where's the Google one? So here's the Google calculator, where I don't have to worry about all those other details. I can just do the $200,000 home with a 4.25% loan, and we can see this looks wrong. And our mortgage payment needs to be over 15 years. We get $1,505 as our monthly payment, which is right here. And it doesn't tell us the interest, but guess what? If you subtracted this $270,820 and the $200,000, that's what you would get. Why do I have $70,900? It's $70,820. I think the rounding on that other website has changed. Not a big deal. It was off by 80 bucks. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, so $1,500 a month sounds like a lot to most of us, I assume. I can't say for everybody. It sounds like a solid amount to me. But what about this 30-year scenario? This 30-year scenario says it would drop your payment by almost $500, by about $460, and your interest would be $175,000. Well, let's see. So let's change the mortgage. Well, we don't change the mortgage amount. We change the interest rate to 4.75 and the mortgage term to 30 years. And there we go, our 1043 for our payment. And then 375,586. If you took the difference of 375,586 and 200,000, you get 175,586. Remember, total interest is the difference of what you pay. See, this says total cost of mortgage. So that's what you paid for your home versus what you're borrowing, which is the $200,000. So wow, when you get this 30-year loan, you pay almost twice what the home is worth. Now, back in the 80s and the 70s, mortgages were like 15%, and you ended up paying about 4 times the value of your home. But homes were worth a lot less because they hadn't been inflated as much. It was kind of a give and take. People were still able to afford the homes, even though they cost 4 times, 5 times as much. It's just a lot more money was going to the bank each month. And then the other website can verify this as well. Just change this to 30, change the interest rate to 4.75, hit calculate, and we get the same numbers. 1043 monthly payment, and then 175,586 for our total interest paid. And there we go. So what's the point of me comparing these two things? Because a lot of people never get into the comparison. They just say, oh, I'm going to take the 30-year loan because that gives me more time to pay it off. Or some people get really, really overzealous and go, I can pay my home down in 15 years. I'm going to take the 15-year loan. That way, those second set of 15 years, I'm not paying for a home and I can do something else with that money, like have fun or invest. So what we're going to do really quickly is we're going to do the analysis that almost no one ever does. And we're going to compare the 15-year to the 30-year and say, which is the better idea? Which one should we take? And a lot of people will say the 15-year mortgage seems like the clear winner. Why is it the clear winner? Because when I'm looking at this, I'm not seeing it clearly yet. What I mean by clear winner is long-term versus short-term analysis. A person thinking about 1 month at a time is going to say the exact opposite of this. They're going to say the 30-year is the clear winner. Why? Long pause while my highlighter pops up. This is the clear winner because you're paying $1,043 a month instead of $1,505 a month. So I disagree. I'm the short-term person right now. The short-term person says, I disagree with you, Mr. Beckner. I want to pay $1,043 a month. I don't want to pay $1,505 a month. I've only got $1,200 a month to spare. Plus, you're going to charge me PMI insurance and taxes on top of this, which probably adds another $300 to $400. Get out of here. I need the 30-year loan. And guess what? That's true for most Americans. But some Americans live a little more frugally. They don't spend nearly as much, or they just have higher paying jobs and they don't have 4 kids and medical problems and yada, yada, yada. Lucky those people, right? So they go, well, you know what? I can actually afford the $1,505 a month plus PMI insurance and taxes. So I'm going to take that 15-year loan. And I'm going to take that loan because I'm a long-term thinker. And the long-term thinker says, over the 15 years, I'm going to pay 71 grand rounded in interest to the bank. Whereas the 30-year loan pays $175,000 in interest to the bank. So the short-term thinker said, the long-term thinker says, I'm going to pay $100,000 less for this home over the long term. That's what I mean by the 15-year mortgage seems like the clear winner. Notice I said the word seems. It seems like the clear winner. And if you know absolutely nothing about investing, and if you never invest in your entire life, then I would say the 15 years is the clear winner. But here's the thing. In my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions, it's not. If you're willing to throw a little risk into the situation and invest, because with investment there is risks. Remember, I've said you will gain a lot of money here and there. You will lose a lot of money here and there. Over the long term, historically, though, you will make 7 to 9%, maybe more, just depends on what you invest in. Maybe less if you're just investing in bonds and playing it too safe. So be aggressive when you're young is the idea. Again, that's the idea. I'm not telling you what to do because this is not investment advice. This is just for educational purposes only. But what a person could do is they could take the 30-year loan and they're only paying $1,043 a month. Now this person had the ability to pay the $1,505. So if you don't have the ability to pay the $1,505, you take the 30-year loan and you're happy to have it. But a person who could afford that $1,505 a month takes the 30-year loan and only pays $1,043 a month, which means they've got what, $462 to spare every single month. So that's $462 they could just put under their mattress, or $462 they can put in a savings account and wait till their roof flies off and their bathroom leaks and their bay window crashes and whatever and all this stuff. But honestly, that's way more money than you'd ever need for that. So maybe they go on vacations and buy shiny new cars and whatever, but maybe they're gonna think about trying to retire earlier, retire at a nominal age with a big fat retirement. So what they do is they take that $462 and they invest it. So what if you invested that extra $462 every single month into a retirement account, which we often call an annuity? Why is there a closed parentheses and not an open parentheses? I need to fix this file. And let's say it just earns 7% compounded monthly. So I'm ignoring inflation. I'm ignoring opportunities to get better investments. I'm going with what the internet and what traditional investors say is the average lifetime return. So again, we are assuming that we could have afforded the 15-year mortgage. So again, there are formulas for this calculation, and I'll pull up the formula sheet and show you. First of all, the mortgage calculator, if I wanted to do that by hand, it would have been this formula. To do the annuity, to find out how much money you'll have over a long, long period of time, you're going to use one of these two. But since we're going to put away the money monthly, we're going to use this one. See, this is annually, so this means an annual deposit. This means in time, so monthly usually, or daily or quarterly, whatever, but usually we do this monthly. We put away money monthly. So that's the formula you would use. And if you use that formula, you would come up with a very similar number, but not exactly the same as what we're about to do with this website. So let's go to this website. Let me not spoil too much. And that is on the finance websites page that I gave you earlier, websites to help you with your finances. So if I pull that up, also if you just Google annuity calculator, it's the 4th or 5th one to pull up there. You have to be careful with annuity calculators if you want to use one different than mine, because they work two ways. There are calculators to build the wealth, and then there's calculators to withdraw the wealth, and we're doing the build up here. So that's why I'm going to say, really use my specific website. There's not a lot of inputs here. So we start with nothing. We're going to put 0 in annually, but we're putting, we said $462 away every single month. This is not an optimal scenario here. We're putting $462 away each month. So monthly addition 462. And we're going to do this at 7% interest. And we're going to do this for how long? How long exactly? The minimum we would do this is if we're getting the 30-year mortgage, we would put that $462 away for 30 years. And look at this. We get $543,341.96 right here. We invested principal $166,000 over this 30-year period. So we put in almost the value of our own home in addition to paying off the home. And then we got almost twice the value of the home for free over time. I really love this pie chart here because it shows you that the money you have in this account 30 years later, only about 1/3 of it was your money. The other 2/3 roughly is money you got for doing nothing. And if you put this in a Roth IRA, you could have done it interest free because this is under $6,000 a year. Holy cow. This right here is almost, this is a retirement, or at least almost a retirement for most people. A lot of people say I want $1 million. Some people don't really have a specific number in mind, but $543,000 is a solid amount of money, especially considering if in a Roth IRA, you've already paid the taxes on all of this. That's $500,000. If you were investing on top of that, or if you had employer cash match, holy cow, you're going to be rolling in it. So this is a reason not to have taken the 15-year mortgage, because that extra $462 just made you $500,000. We go, all right, well, Mr. Beckner, well, how about this scenario though? What if instead of taking the 30-year mortgage and investing my extra cash every year, what if I get the 15-year mortgage, pay the $1,505 for 15 years, after I finish the mortgage, I'll take that $1,505, which I now have in my bank account every month, and just invest it. So now I'm going to pay the mortgage down, the house down for 15 years, and then I'm going to take every single penny I was paying for the mortgage, and I'm going to invest that. You go, $1,500 a month? That's going to make me like a trillionaire over 15 years, because now we only get 15 years. And if you remember what I talked about with compound interest, with these exponential equations, time is a huge factor. Time and interest rate are the biggest contributing factors to you getting all that free money, that explosion of money. So maybe the money doesn't explode as much in 15 years. Let's see. All right, so now instead of $462 a month, we have $1,505 a month, but we're only going to be able to do this for 15 years. The first 15 we were paying the mortgage, the second 15 we're paying the house. Now, do you have to invest exactly as I'm doing here? No. Maybe that $462 a month, maybe you were only investing 200 of it and then just had fun with the rest. Okay, be your own self, that's fine. Maybe this $1,505 a month, maybe you're only investing 1,200 and you take 305 of it and you have a little fun, or you eat better or whatever. Okay, again, that sounds great, but we're just going to the extreme scenario. All right, so before we had 543,000 in our retirement, this extra retirement account, where almost 400,000 was free. Okay, well, we still have around 500,000, but we're under instead of over. Sorry about that. And now we put 270 grand of our own money in, whereas it was like 170 last time. And our interest, the free money, is only 200 grand, where it was 370 grand before. And in this account, it is a lot more of our own money, the lighter blue, and a lot less of the free money. Now, it's still almost half free money, so that's still amazing. That's still $470,000 you've got. It's just you end up spending a lot more of your own cheddar on this. There we go. This will help. So this was how much we had if we took the 30-year loan and invested the extra change. This is how much we have if we took the 15-year loan and then the next 15 years we invested every penny of that. So I think with this, if you're able to achieve this over 15 or 30 years, because it's a big if, I can't say you will. Some of you might do way better than this. Some of you may not. I can't say. But both of this tells me I still want the 30-year mortgage because of two things. If you invested, as stated here, you'll net more money, assuming you get that 7% trend, which this year the trend is way above that, even through this whole virus thing. You'll net more money. Okay, we said, well, hold on, Mr. Beckner. I had this $200,000 home. You paid interest. You paid extra $100,000 in interest. So you're paying the bank an extra $100,000. Yes, but look at this. You get $200,000 for free in this scenario, or almost $400,000 for free in this scenario. So if you take the 30-year loan, you give the bank an extra $100,000, but then you get $377,000, meaning you net $277,000 roughly. 280 because there's a $5,000 spare there. So you get more than the value of your house for free over that period. Also, let's say it's February. January, you put that 462 in. February, you do your taxes and something was weird and you end up owing taxman an extra $500 that you weren't expecting. Okay, so that month, don't put the 462 in your this extra retirement account. Pay the taxman. Then in March, pay the 462 in your second retirement account. Then in April, pay it. Oh, then in May, the roof blows off your house and you didn't have enough spare change. So you got to take a small loan and then pay off that loan for a year and then start paying the 462 again or something like that. But the point is you would have options. The 15-year loan doesn't give you options. You're stuck paying that $1,505 every month. So if the next month you've only got $1,200 in your bank account, what do? Well, if you had taken the 30-year mortgage, you'd still be able to pay that mortgage, and then you just don't put the little extra into your investment. But if you got the 15-year loan, they're going to say, all right, well, we're going to hit you with like $75 on a late payment since you're going to pay us a month late. So is this me telling you to absolutely not take a 15-year mortgage? No, I'm not telling you that. 15-year mortgages are great for people that don't feel secure with investments. I hope that you learn to feel a little more secure with investments because this stuff works, generally speaking. But if you just can't handle that idea, the 15-year mortgage is for you because you'll save yourself that $100,000 in interest. But if you are comfortable with the idea of investments, if you are comfortable with the idea of being a millionaire 30, 40 years from now, hopefully, I would suggest that in this scenario, I would take the 30-year mortgage, pay the extra $462 a month, get my extra $500,000 for free, and then again, hopefully you're still contributing to other stuff as well. All right, so just really, really quickly, because I have to show you at least once, let's copy paste that formula over here. You okay, buddy? My dog's making a weird face at me. If I have to go on mute and run out the door for a minute, don't be surprised. All right, so this is the loan payment formula. Let's see if we can get these numbers by using that. I'm I'm only going to do one of them actually, and we're going to do the 30-year one since that's what I'm suggesting. So this is our payment formula. So with the scenario above, our payment should be equal to, now in this case, principal, that's the amount that you borrow. So that's the $200,000. So it's 200,000 times the interest rate, which is the 4.75, so 0.0475 over 12, since we make monthly payments and to car payments, mortgage payments in general. And yes, another alternative that's pretty popular is you pay half your monthly payment every 2 weeks. That ends up getting you an extra payment over a year, or maybe 2 payments. I don't remember off the top of my head. Another alternative is you can just take the 30-year loan, and if you have a couple extra $100 in your account, you want to put it towards the home, then you make an extra principal payment. So you can turn a 30-year loan into a 20-year loan, or a 25-year loan, or a 26-year 3-month loan by just putting a little extra scratch in. And it doesn't take that much money to take years off of that loan, again, if you really just don't want to do the investment side of things. All right, so over bracket 1 minus parentheses 1 plus that same 0.0475 over 12 raised to the, and this is the first time you've seen this, it's the only time you'll see this, it's in the payment formula, a negative exponent, which you have to be careful with your calculator. Some of you might have to hit the negative after you type the numbers. Then n times t, the n was 12 because monthly, time we're paying 30 years. Then we close the bracket. Now, so I don't have to rewrite this all over again, I'm just going to write that this exponent right here, 12 times 30 is 360, so that's negative 360. And I can type this in a scientific or graphing calculator all at once. So 200,000 parentheses or times 0.0475 divided by 12, close the parentheses. Then this division is this big fraction bar. Now there are no bracket buttons in calculators generally. They're used for matrices. If I found the bracket button on my calculator, which is right here, it would spit out an error after I hit enter, so I'm not going to. You just got to use a parentheses count. 1 minus parentheses. Mr. Beckner, where are you getting all this? I'm literally just reading this. Just use your eyes, one piece at a time. Type it, one piece at a time. Type it, one piece at a time. Type it. All right, parentheses, then 1 plus. Then the 0.0475 divided by 12. We close the parentheses. Divided by 12, close the parentheses. Then an exponent. Now for me, I do the negative, then the 360. Depending on your calculator, 360, not 365, you may have to type the negative second. It just depends. Remember, we always pre-multiply exponents. And look at this, 1043 and then 29 cents. That I believe is what the mortgagecalculator.org website said. And then to get the interest, well, that's our payment, 1043.29. We're going to pay that 60 times, excuse me, 360 times. The exponent is the number of payments in T. So if you took that 1043, and I think this is why there's the discrepancy up here of the number I had versus of, what was it, 900 originally? I can't remember. If you do 1043, again, these are usually rounded to the nearest whole dollar, times 360. You get 375,480. And if you subtract, let me do the actual payment, 1043.29 times 360. And then if you subtract the $200,000 you borrowed, there's your interest of $175,580. Now, the reason there is a $2 difference here is because of round off error. We've talked about how a small round off here done over and over and over and over and over and over and over can lead to bigger changes. And that's why it's off by just a couple of bucks. Now, you're not actually going to pay the bank a fraction of a penny. So this is much more accurate. But I mean, you're $2 off. If you're just trying to understand these numbers for yourself, is that $2 error going to mean anything? Absolutely not. The important side of this is it's about $175,000 in interest. So again, all I did was I found the total paid by taking the payment times the number of payments. That was day one material. And then I subtracted the total paid minus how much we borrowed. There it is. For the annuity calculation, let's do the 30-year one. So we're going to take the value of annuity compounded in times. We're going to take this formula because we're doing monthly deposits. So the amount we'll have later, A, will be the payment of $462, bracket parentheses 1 plus. We're earning 7% monthly, and then that's NT, so 12 times 30, then a minus 1 here. Again, you see a lot of the similar features, they're just kind of rearranged, and then the bottom is 0.07 over 12. Again, R in, I'm just putting the circle in the circle, the square in a square. The 12 times the 30, once again, is 360, but this is a positive, not a negative, so make sure that you understand that. Pull out a calculator. 462, bracket parentheses, 1 plus 0.07 divided by 12, close the parentheses, raise it to the 360th power, because we're going to make that deposit 360 times, then a minus 1, that minus 1 is not part of the exponent, close the bracket, which I have a parentheses there, divided by parentheses, 0.07 divided by 12. And let's see if we get that 543,000. What's going on here? Oh, no, okay, I remember. This is the one that's different. I said earlier that the Annuity Calculator website is going to be a little off. And it actually feels significantly off because it's $20,000 difference here. And I'm going to explain why this is. This formula here is oversimplified. Believe it or not, this formula is oversimplified. The website is a little more accurate because it accounts for, I don't even want to tell you what it accounts for, but it accounts for something else. So these numbers will not match the website versus actually using the formula. But again, it tells you, oh, $500,000 and some change. That's a lot of money. That tells me I should be doing this thing because I'm going to have $500,000 later. So in terms of if you had calculations to do in your My Math Lab homework from Chapter 9, which again, I've already told you you're not responsible for, then this is the formula you'd have to use. You couldn't use the website because the website is inaccurate in comparison to our oversimplified formula. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, about $550,000, this was about $550,000. It's good enough for what we call government work. So $563,000, which was close. It's not super accurate, but it's ballpark. So again, do you take the 15 or the 30-year mortgage? That's your decision, not me telling you what to do, but you've been educated on what you can do with your spare change if you can afford the 15-year and instead take the 30-year. Also, if all this still just absolutely terrifies you and you don't want to have money sitting around a bank account for a spare roof here and there, then you just rent for the rest of your life. Renting's not the end of the world. It's an option. You have less financial burdens overall. You just have to pay for the rest of your life. Also, if you're only going to live somewhere for 3 or 5 years, renting is usually the best way to go as well, because when you buy a home, you have to pay, fees. The real estate agents take some money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, due to what we call amortization, you don't get a lot of your money invested back in the home until like 15, 20 years in. You're paying each month, you're paying a lot more towards interest than principal. And I'm going to show the website again real quick to explain that. And let's do this on a monthly schedule. Let's go back to the 30-year one. Monthly, oh, that's the annuity calculator. That's what was throwing me off. All right, here we go. So I'm going to click show amortization tables, which is just a monthly breakdown of where your money is going. Let's take the chart off. Let's do monthly amortization. So when you go buy a home, they'll give you this chart. It's 360 rows of how much of your money goes towards principal, how much of your money goes towards interest. So that's this table right here. So our first month on the 30-year loan, about $800 goes to the bank, and about $250 essentially goes to us. Notice I used the word essentially. So that's $250 that you've now paid off in your house. So if there were no fees for selling your home and you sold your house for exactly $200,000 on January 5th before you paid your next payment, that means that you would now have $251.63. That would be how much you have for sitting in your home for a month. That's not a lot. You paid, where is it? $1043 that month, but you're only banking $251.63. So that's not a whole lot. And again, that's not $250 you just have access in terms of liquid. It's $250 that you would have if you sold your house for exactly what you bought it for, which is pretty rare that that happens. But what happens is each month you pay a little less in interest, 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 a little less in interest. And then because you're paying a little less in interest, that means you're paying a little more to yourself, a little more to yourself, a little more to yourself. And the interest keeps going down, the principal keeps going up. So 10 years in 2030, now it's only $639 we're paying the bank and $404 that we're, quote, paying ourselves, going under a mattress that you buried 10 feet under your yard because it's not that easy to get to. You have to sell your home to get it back, essentially. But then 10 years later, in 2040, look at this. Now we're only paying $400 to the bank and we're paying $600 to ourselves. So at some point it flipped. And for this particular scenario, it flipped about here. About 16 years in is about where we start paying a little more to ourselves and a little less to the bank. And to the right column shows you how much you have left on the loan. So let's go back to the start. So after that first month payment, you had $199,748 left of the loan. So again, your 200 some dollars and change, 251, there it is, would be the money under your mattress in your backyard, 6 feet, 10 feet under the ground. 10 years in 2030, December of 2030, we've paid about $39,000 of this home down. A third of the life of the loan has gone by. Well, we've only paid $39,000. You would think maybe you paid $66,000 because that's a third of the loan, but no, you've only paid $39,000. 20 years in, now you've paid about, where are we? Here we are. You've paid about half your home. It takes 20 years for you to pay half your home down. With the last 10 years, because you're paying much more to principal than the bank and interest, it drops really, 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 really quickly, especially the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. I mean, look at this. The last payment, you're only paying the bank $8 and you're paying yourself, in theory, $1,000. That's because these interest payments on a month-to-month basis don't go to those big crazy calculations. It's just balance times periodic rate. And if your balance is $1,039.18, 1039.18. So there's your balance times your periodic rate. We were getting a 0.0475, which is 4.75% divided by 12 to make it a periodic rate. And there's our $4.11 that the bank gets. And then the rest of that monthly payment goes towards yourself. And then you own your home. You don't make that payment anymore. You just pay insurance and taxes. Please don't let the government take your home because you're not paying your taxes. Please don't inherit a home and let the city take it because you're not paying your taxes. Good grief, that just upsets me. People complain about, oh man, my taxes are $300 a month. I can't afford it. Yeah, but you're not paying a mortgage of $1,400 a month. Come on. And again, I know some of us have extenuating circumstances like crazy medical expenses, but do everything you can to pay those taxes. When you own your own home, insure it. Please don't stop paying your insurance because you own it. You don't want your house to burn down and then you got nothing. And I know someone who knows someone who that happened to. They inherited a home, so they said, I'm not going to insure it, and that thing burned down. And I cannot imagine how many tears were shed over that. All right, maybe you don't trust this interest up here. Well, why is the first one so high? So again, our balance was $200,000 before we paid anything down, times that 0.0475 divided by 12. Again, that's our periodic rate, 4.75% divided by monthly. There's our 791.67. And then the rest would go to principal. And then you can subtract the balance and the principal to get your new balance. These are all things that we've done before. We're just applying it to a mortgage now. All right, so that's mortgages. We've got about 20 minutes. All right. Remember, you have to decide whether you like the risk or not. All investment values are speculative and for educational purposes only. No lawsuits are going to happen. Renting is an option. You don't have to invest. You don't have to own a home. You can do whatever you like. I just want to educate you to understand these numbers, because a lot of people are, oh, well, I want to get a home, but I need to go talk to a loan officer to find out what my monthly payment will be. No, you don't. Go to mortgagecalculator.org. Go to a website that says typical mortgage, just Google current mortgage rates. If you have awesome credit, then you'll be able to get those rates. If you've got okay credit, maybe add 1% to that, and then just run some numbers yourself. If you want to compare a 15-year to a 30-year loan, you can do that. A lot of times if you go to buy a car, those people are skeezy, and they'll just give you the payment numbers. Well, you can take the 3-year loan and it's this payment. You can take the 5-year loan and it's this payment. They won't even tell you the interest rates sometimes. I have a friend who this just happened to. They wanted to buy like a $40,000 car, and they were asking what the rates were. He wouldn't say, the lender or the car person, whatever, would not tell them the rate. and he texted me about it, and I said, walk away. If they're not going to tell you the rate, that's not good. And he walked away. All right, credit cards, the other type of debt, and this is the bad debt. Don't you ever again pay another penny in credit card interest if you have any kind of control over it. This is how people don't retire. Instead of putting that $462 a month to an investment, they're putting $462 to a credit card payment for some swanky couch and whatever, all sorts of other fun things, but fun things, they don't last. So credit cards, mortgages right now, 3 to 4% for really good credit. 5% has been more the historical average for the past decade, just decade. Past that, it was 6, 7%. 3 decades ago, it was 10 to 20%. It was awful. So credit cards, 15 to 20% annual percent rate generally. Yes, there are credit cards with introductory lower rates or no rate at all for like a year. If you have awful credit, it can go higher. There is no cap. I'm sorry, there is a cap now. I always forget that because that was just put in like 3 or 4 years ago. But there is a cap to what they can charge. And this is what happens. The minimum payment trap can lead to items costing twice as much or more. So you buy a $1,000 computer and it ends up costing you $2,200. So you buy a $50 video game and it ends up costing you $100 because you're just making minimum payments on a 18 or 20 or 22% credit card. The average American has $10,000 of credit card debt. Awful, awful, awful. Now, this is not some speculative financial advice. Don't have credit card debt. It's the worst thing you can do for yourself. I understand sometimes we're forced into a corner and we don't have a job, so we rack it up on the credit card. Medical bills come up, so we rack it on the credit card. That's fine. If you have the control, don't rack up credit card debt. And I say this as someone who uses a credit card every single day, every single month, every single year. I put 90% of my expenses on a credit card, but I pay it off every month. Because if you pay it off in full, you never actually get charged the interest. And they give you a 30-day safety window before the interest actually starts getting charged. And that's from when they send you the bill. All right, so let's do a scenario. $2,000 balance at 18% APR with a payment of $50 per month. And this is what you would probably see from the credit card company. Now, depending on your company, they may ask for a little more because they have different thresholds for values and stuff. So this credit card company says, you're going to pay us $50 every month. And I'm telling you, it's going to take 62 months to pay off, and you'll end up paying $1,077 in interest, which is more than 50% of what you borrowed in 5 years. Mortgages don't even get that high in 15 years. If you don't believe me, here's the 15-year mortgage problem again. You only paid $71,000 in interest, which is about 35% interest on the principal. So your home on a 15-year loan costs you 35%. Well, Mr. Beckner, you said don't take that. Take 30-year loan. Again, I didn't actually say don't take it, so don't put words in my mouth. I made suggestions of reasons to do certain things. Well, the 30-year loan, that was closer to like 80%. But again, that's 30 years. That's a long, long time. This credit card, we're only looking at for 5 years, and we're already paying that much in interest proportionally. Imagine if you have 20 grand in credit card debt. Now that's $10,000 that you're paying in interest. That's insane. That's money you might as well just set fire to. All right, so maybe you're not trusting these numbers. Where did these numbers come from, Mr. Beckner? Oh, well, there's a website for that. If you go to your helpful websites, back to the top, credit card payoff calculator. Also, if you just Google credit card calculator, payoff calculator, it's like the first or second or third thing to pop up. More ads I'm not used to seeing. Credit card balance. Oh, I haven't used that on this computer before, $2,000. Credit card interest rate, 18%. You're probably typing these numbers, of course. Payment per month or desired months to pay off. So these last two, it's an either or scenario. I said we're making a $50 monthly payment. Hit calculate, and look at this. It takes 62 months to pay off. We have $1,077 in interest. So again, that's more than 50% that you're paying in interest. Mr. Beckner, this says 35%. This is on the total paid. Out of the $3,077 you pay that credit card company back, 2/3 of that goes to your principal, which you actually borrowed, and then they get 1/3 of what you paid for free. So relative to what you borrowed, interest was 50% of that. Relative to what you pay in total, interest is 35% of that. It's a case of it's relative to what you're comparing it to. All right, so what do? Well, I would suggest you pay this off quicker. Instead of making $50 monthly payments, if you can afford it, make $100 monthly payments or $200 monthly payments or whatever. Let's see what happens if we double our payment. This is 5 years and 2 months right now. If I double my payment, you might think, oh, it's going to be 31 months. Nope, it's 24. You know why? Because interest compounds. And when you're paying this off quicker, you're reverse compounding, which shortens the time span instead of lengthening it. So that's 7 months of paying you save yourself. And look at this, you only pay $400 in interest instead of almost $1,100 in interest. So you're saving yourself $700 approximately by doubling your payment on this small loan. Look at this, if you had a $20,000 credit card balance, which some people do, that means you would have been having to make $500 monthly payments originally to get it paid down in 62. Now, if you're making $1,000 payments, your total interest goes from 11 grand to 4 grand. You're saving yourself $7,000. The first thing you need to do is pay off your credit cards. No one is going to tell you otherwise. Credit cards need to go to zero balance. Again, you can use them every month, but pay them off every month. Oh, Mr. Beckner, if I get this credit card, they're offering me 2 or 3 or 4% points for getting this Amazon card, which is just money back in my account. That's free money. Yeah, but if you're paying 18% interest or 24% interest, that free money is completely negated. That 1% you're getting back is negated by the 23% you're paying. That makes complete sense, I hope. But if you're not paying the credit card company any money in interest, then that 1 or 2 or 3% now is free money. And that's what you do. There are credit cards out there that will offer you like, if you spend $1,000 the first 3 months, we'll give you $200 or $300 for free. Those are great credit cards to get if you are good with credit cards. Not everyone is good with credit cards. Some people can't handle them. And to those people, I say maybe or maybe you shouldn't have a credit card at all. The problem is you need some type of credit to establish a credit score to be able to buy a home later. Some people buy cars to establish their credit score. Some people get credit cards to establish their credit score. Some people get their parents or someone else to co-sign on a loan or a credit card. There are lots of different variables there. But you really do have to establish a credit score at some point to borrow money for a home, because that's how the bank trusts you. No credit is the worst thing you could have. So absolutely nothing in that world means they have nothing to base trust off of. The world is currently changing. The what we call the FICO score, or FICO score is becoming modified in some ways, that they can start looking at your savings accounts and making sure you've never dipped below $0 balance or checking accounts and things like that. I am not exactly in tune with that side of things and how relative it is, but if it's not a thing yet, it is going to be more of a thing in 10 years at least. That's what I do know. So maybe that can affect you in a positive way, maybe not. Credit cards have pros. They have a lot of cons. All right, so tips for good credit card use. To establish a good credit score, which helps you get lower APR loans or a loan at all. Pay off your cards every month and on time, and you'll never pay a cent in interest. Many cards offer points and rewards, which I was just talking about, which are only valuable if you are not paying their terrible interest. Many cards offer sign-on bonuses. If it's one that's a lot more extreme, like, oh, spend $4,000 in 3 months and we'll give you $500. $500 for free? Yes, sign me up and let me go buy $4,000 in electronics. No. Only do this if you already plan to spend that much. Maybe you're going to be rebuilding your bathroom and you're going to buy $2,000, $3,000 worth of materials, and then you just have another $1,000 in average expenses. Okay, then you can go get that $4,000 expense needed to get $500 for free credit card. Don't just go spending needlessly and recklessly to hit some magic number. Do it because you have to. Before we move on, where is it? It's on the other page. That's where it is. How's your credit score calculated? There are tons and tons and tons of myths about credit cards. Myth number one, that you need to keep a balance on your credit card every month, which means you need to pay the bank a little bit of interest every month. Wrong, false. You know who started that myth? The credit card companies, so that you'll pay more money to them. The best thing you can do for yourself is drive that balance down to zero with every single month's payment. Because of something known as a utilization ratio, also known as on this chart, current loan and credit card debt. It makes up 30% of your credit score. The lower that number, the better. Zero is the perfect number. Having a balance is worse than zero, which means this little donut would be a little smaller and your credit score would be a little smaller. Second myth, if you're not using a credit card, you need to close it because having too many credit cards is bad. Completely false. Unless it has annual fees. Don't ever pay annual fees on credit cards. Asterisks, there are exceptions to the rule if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, if the bonuses are worth it, but I'm not going to get into that great of detail because we're short on time. It is actually better for your credit score to have more credit, to have more credit cards. Now, again, if you're the person, which is like 8 out of 10 Americans who just can't handle credit cards, I'm not talking to that person right now, but if you have one credit card and it has $1,000 credit available, that's fine. But if you have 3 credit cards and each of them are $1,000, now you have $3,000 in credit. That's actually better because it increases the denominator of your utilization ratio. Utilization ratio means you take how much money you have on the credit cards and you divide it by how much money they'll let you go up to. So utilization ratio, I'm just abbreviating it for the interest of time. Utilization ratio, or your rate of credit. That's how much on the cards to available credit. So let's say Bob has $500 on the cards and $1,000 in credit. His utilization ratio is 500 over 1,000. Oh, look, a ratio, which is 0.5, which is 50%. That means 50% of his credit is being utilized currently, and that's not good. That's going to drop Bob's credit score. Jane has $500 on her cards, and she's got $5,000 in credit. So she's got 5 credit cards maybe, or just a total of $5,000 in credit, because usually it'll be like one card will give you 1,000, another card will give you 3,000, whatever. So Jane's utilization ratio is 500 over 5,000, which is 0.1, which is 10%. That is better for your credit score. The lower that number, the better. 0 is perfect. Now, if you're charging money on your card every month and paying it every month, which means you're never paying interest, you'll still have a utilization ratio because it gets pinged on a certain day of the month, which depends on your card. But that number should be pretty low because you're paying it off every month. It's not like you're building up $10,000 worth of credit card debt and paying that off, except in really, really rare circumstances like you're a millionaire. Okay, buy whatever you want at that point, I guess. All right, so payment history. Oh man, 35% is your payment history. You miss one payment, it can drop your score up to 100 points depending on where you are. Now, some of you might be saying, well, Mr. Beckner, I missed a payment and it only dropped my score 30 points. It's probably because you have a low credit score and you've missed payments before. I'm talking about that first payment you miss. Do not ever miss a payment on your credit cards. Now you might say, well, Mr. Beckner, I missed a payment one time and my score didn't change at all. I watch it. And if you've got apps for your credit cards, like if it's on Chase or BB&T or Bank of America or whatever, usually these apps now offer you just a quick free credit score check that you don't have to pay for. Don't pay anyone for a credit score check, please. You'll say, all right, I missed a payment and my credit score wasn't affected at all. Well, that's because the credit companies don't always ping it immediately. If you pay it in like 4 or 5 days, you might miss that pinging is what they call it, and then it doesn't affect you. Some credit card companies will do it the second you miss the payment though. So don't miss payments. That's 35% of your credit score. Don't close out old cards just because you're not using them, because that's the length of your credit history. That's 15%. Don't close out cards because 30% of your credit score is how much utilization you have. So the more cards you have, the more credit you have available. 10% is in the types of credit, so credit cards, car loans, home loans. This is a really small contributing factor. So if you don't have a car loan, that's not that big a deal. If you don't have a home loan, that's not that big a deal. 10% is new credit. Every time you get a new credit card, it's going to drop your credit score maybe 10 to 20 points, which is not really that significant. It just means don't apply for 10 credit cards in a year. 1 or 2 a year is fine. Maybe 1 a year to be more conservative. And again, none of this is advice. I'm just saying what you can do potentially to have things happen. The biggest contributing factor to your credit score is missing payments. The second one is how much credit you have available. The third one is how long you've had them open. And if you have a 10-year-old credit card and you close it, woo, that credit score is going to drop significantly, not 100 points, but maybe like 40 or 50 points because you just killed your oldest card. And they want to see those old cards because old cards mean they can trust you. If you have a card that you haven't used for 2 or 3 years and they send you something in the mail saying, hey, if we don't see something, if you don't use this in the next month, we're going to close it, go put a $5 charge on it, pay for it immediately, pay it off immediately, and that'll keep your 10-year-old card. Don't let them take your old cards. All right. Anything else I want to point out from this section? I think that'll be good. So here's those 3 websites. And again, all of these you can quickly find with a Google search. The mortgage calculator, if you don't like my website, just Google mortgage calculator. It's got that built-in one with a lot less bells and whistles. But the bells and whistles will help you see the amortization, graphs, and things like that. And it can also account for realistic things like your PMI, your insurance, and your, what did I just forget? Taxes. Your annuity calculator, I said there's 2 different types of annuity calculators, so maybe really specifically use mine there. This credit card payoff calculator is awesome. Let's go back to the credit card payoff. That's what we'll finish this with. So back to the $2,000 card we have. $2,000 worth of debt on a credit card, 18% interest. Now let's say instead of putting in a payment per month, let's say we go, all right, I know $50 a month was going to take me 62 months to pay it off, 5 years, 2 months. What if I say I want to have this card paid off in 3 years? I can blank out this one and type 36 in the desired months to pay off, which would be 3 years. And it will spit out the monthly payment I need. So I need to pay $72 a month to pay this down in 3 years. This is a super simple but amazing website. If you have 3 or 4 or 5 credit cards with all sorts of debt on them, Some people will say pay the biggest balance off first. Some people will say pay the biggest APR off first. Both are excellent schools of thoughts. If you want to pay the least amount of interest, pay the one with the highest rate off first, then the next highest rate, then the next highest rate. Don't worry about the balances. If you want to have what we call the cascading effect, so that your payment amount drops significantly all of a sudden, then you pay off the biggest balance first, then the second biggest balance, and the third biggest balance. You'll pay a little more interest that way, but you'll probably feel a little better as you go because, all right, I pay off, let's say 2 years in, I pay off my biggest credit card. And that was $300 a month. Now that's $300 you just freed up. Again, you're probably paying a little more in interest that way, but it's not going to be that significant, and it'll make you feel better. That's what most people think, at least. It's a mental effect. But if you don't need that mental effect, you pay off the highest rate card because every month that's going to be the thing causing the most damage. So I got a card with $2,000 and I got a card with $200. The $2,000 card has an 18% APR. The $200 card has a 25% APR. Me, I'm going to pay down that 25% APR first, get rid of that $200 credit card, so that then I can attack the lower interest one. And when you free up that money, you can take that free money and attack the credit cards. Should you pay off your credit cards first, or should you focus on investing first, or should you be doing both at the same time? Different schools of thoughts, and I don't want to tell you what to do. Me personally, I'm of the school of thought that I'd pay off the credit cards first. If you think you're going to have credit card debt your whole life, then pay off your credit cards and invest at the same time. Don't save the credit cards for last. No one should ever do that. You're either paying off the credit cards first, or you're paying your credit cards while investing. I think the first scenario is better, but if you're just the type of person who's going to live with credit card debt your whole life, then you need to be investing while putting up with your credit card debt. But again, I highly suggest that you never pay those terrible banks their credit card interest ever again if you can control it. And on that bombshell, we'll call it a day.
Obviously not, obviously not calling it a day, just going to set up for the next part of the video. So give me 1 minute. And here we go.
For is an Excel section that we just do not need to cover. You've heard me mention this word a few times already. We talked about it and used a formula with it last time and used a website with it last time. But let's just take a little bit more time to discuss that. Annuities. This is an account where you add payments on a regular basis. Yes, a savings account could be considered an annuity. Yes, a checking account could arguably be considered an annuity. We usually don't call our retirement accounts annuities anymore, though. It's kind of an old term that people tended to use for pensions, where you just have a certain percentage payout at the end. You're always gaining a certain percent every year. For example, if you had a state job 10, 20 years ago, your pension typically grew at 4% per year, and that never changed. And it's just the state would make their own investments, and if they made more than 4%, they just gave you 4%. If they made less than 4%, they still gave you your 4%, and they just hope to make up for it the next year. You know, hashtag 2008 stock market crash because of mortgage-backed securities. We don't need to get into that detail. So that's more what the word annuity usually is more relevant for, but we can still use it in a general sense of an account that you add payments to on a regular basis. Now, those pension plans, those 4% per year no matter what, which is pretty low, whispers into the mic, because I've said we want to hit that 7% return if we can. That's the average over long times. So annuities, the traditional annuities, you have a fixed rate, whereas your investments where you're buying bonds and stocks and mutual funds and ETFs, Those all vary on a daily basis. It's just they average out over a long, long time to hopefully a good number. So again, using the word annuity loosely, just in the sense of we're adding payments on a regular basis. So this is how we're supposed to save up for retirement. You take $50 a paycheck and you slide it into your 401k or your IRA or your brokerage or your whatever, or $100 a month, or $200 a month, or $1,000 a month, or $3 a day, whatever it is that you are capable of doing on a certain time interval. Now, we do prefer that you do something called pay yourself first, that you have this percentage or this dollar amount that you're going to hit no matter what, and you're not going to adjust it no matter what. So even if you have $3 to spare at the end of the month, you still put that $100 in your retirement fund first before you start paying your other bills, before you start going and having fun. That's the idea. It's called paying yourself first. So, hold on. Yeah, still kind of messed up from a few weeks ago. All right. So what are these retirement accounts called? Because there's a few different names. They operate differently. Let's get into that. So we've got our 401k. That's the first thing. And this is usually the first thing that people get into with retirement. So 401k is an employee or employer sponsored, and sometimes they're known as a 403b. Sometimes you'll have a 401k and a 403b. Don't worry about the different numbers. It's just about one of them might be what the employer is putting in, and one of them is what the employee is putting in. And I actually get them backwards. I think the 403b is what the employer does, but don't hold me to that. It doesn't technically matter. So your 401k is where your employer says, all right, we're going to give you the opportunity to take some money and put it into an investment where we won't tax you on the money you put in. So normally if you make $1,000, if you're making like 50 grand a year, Uncle Sam is going to take about 25% of that, roughly, between state taxes, federal taxes, FICA, all that different stuff. Well, if you put it into a 401k, a traditional 401k, you don't pay that 25% roughly tax, and that means that that $1,000 that would have before turned into $750 in your pocket, that $1,000 goes into the investment as $1,000. Now, as your 401k grows, you'll pay taxes on the interest when you start pulling it out. So the money you put in is tax-free, but the interest, the free money you get, you'll pay taxes on that later. You won't pay taxes on the money you put in. That's still tax-free. So if you put, say, $10,000 in, and at the end of your retirement, when you start getting ready to withdraw, you have $30,000, that means that you would have 20 grand you'd have to pay taxes on as you withdraw it. Now, if you withdraw it all at once, then you have to pay the taxes all at once. If you withdraw it over time, you pay the taxes over time. So with a 401k, what most employers offer is a cash match. And a lot of them will say, all right, for every dollar you put in, we'll put $1 in. Then there's others that will say for every dollar you put in, we'll put 50 cents in. So it doesn't have to be dollar for dollar. It can be you put in $1, they put in 50 cents. And it could be anything they decide. You could put in $1 and they put in 67 cents if they wanted to be weird. It's usually 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 though, as a ratio. Now, they won't do this for an unlimited amount of dollars. There are maximum contributions per year to a 401k, which currently is $19,500. And that's a lot to be throwing into your retirement, definitely not throwing away. That was a poor choice of word. But your employer is probably not going to match almost $20,000 of your investment. They'll say, all right, we'll match you dollar for dollar up to $5,000, or we'll match you dollar to dollar versus 50 cents up to 2 grand, or we'll match you dollar to dollar up to 10 grand. There'll be some nominal amount that they'll match. And you want to take every penny of that you can, because that's just more money you're getting. So you originally make, let's say, $30,000 a year, and your employer offers to match dollar for dollar up to $10,000, which means if you put $10,000 in your 401k, your salary just went from 30 grand to 40 grand because they're going to give you another 10 grand. And 10 grand of that you put in is tax-free, and the 10 grand they put in is tax-free. So you now make $40,000 where only 20 grand of that's being taxed. Now, that's an extreme situation. I find most employers max out around $5,000, but I can't say I've looked at every scenario in the universe. There are employers that are much more generous with their match. There are employers that are much less generous with their match. Maybe I know a situation where someone's 401k only matches up to $20 per paycheck, and they're only putting in 50 cents for every dollar. Maybe someone's thumbs are pointing in their direction. All right, so 401k, this is employer based. So you have to have a job to get a 401k. And I think that's about enough to say about that. 401k, I think you can start withdrawing at 59 and a half, or maybe it's 62, or maybe it's 55. I don't have that number up here, but it's in your mid to late 50s, at worst, early 60s. I want to say it's 55. A quick Google could fix that. You're going to be patient with me for about 15 seconds. $59 and a half. That's what I thought. I thought it was the same as IRA. All right, so 401k, you can start withdrawing without penalty at 59 and a half. Yes, you can withdraw before then, but there's all sorts of penalties that we're not getting into the details of in the interest of time. All right, so what's next up on the retirement list? You have IRAs and Roth IRAs. So an IRA kind of stands for individual retirement account or independent retirement account, something like that. So this is money outside of your job. This is money as long as you have a job, you can invest into a retirement account. But your employer is not going to match any money in this. It's just if you want to put in $5, you're putting in $5. So what's the difference of IRA versus Roth IRA? And the first one where I just have IRA, a lot of people will call that the traditional IRA. But without the word traditional, it means the same thing. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit to where we have, here we go, we're down here. Remember how I said with that 401k, you're putting in non-taxed money, but the interest is taxed? That's the same as with your traditional IRA, the first one. You're going to put money in. I'm sorry, I said first, but I have them backwards. I did not realize that. So let me just highlight that one. With a traditional IRA, you're putting money in that is tax-free. So if you earn $1,000, you put $1,000 in. That $1,000 doesn't turn into $750 because Uncle Sam takes his slice. It's just $1,000. Now you might say, well, Mr. Beckner, my paycheck already took those taxes out. So how is it that I haven't paid taxes on it if my paycheck took it out? Well, you see, Bob or Jane, at the end of the year, when you file your taxes, you'll get that money back. That's how it works. Yeah, it'll come out of your paycheck at first for these IRAs, but then at the end of the year, you're going to file your taxes and you're going to say you put money into a traditional IRA and they're going to go, oh, okay, well, we owe you some money then. Here's those tax dollars back. So a traditional IRA is more similar to a traditional 401k in that you put money in that's tax-free, but then any interest you get would be taxed. So the free money you get for investing is taxed. And that's not the end of the world. A lot of people make a ton of money with traditional IRAs. Some people that make buttloads of money every year, like 200 grand a year, have to take a traditional IRA. They don't have the option of a Roth. If you're young especially, and you're not making $200,000 a year, Roth, in my opinion, in my highly educated opinion, Roth is the way to go because you're going to put money in that is taxed now. You're going to go ahead and pay that taxes on the dollars you put in, but then the interest grows tax-free. And we have seen all these scenarios where we can put like 60 grand in and have it turn into $1 million over 50 years, or maybe we put like 200 grand in and have it turn into $1 million over 30 years or 35 years. We've seen these scenarios. And we've seen that the amount of interest we get when we have good growth, when we have good time, the interest is massively more than what we put in. So me personally, my mindset is I'd rather pay the taxes on the smaller amount and then get tax-free the larger amount. Now, there are different schools of thought. Some people will say, well, Mr. Beckner, with that traditional IRA, couldn't you, when you get your tax money back, couldn't you invest those dollars as well to kind of counteract it? And yes, you could. There's some crazy math and some crazy predictions you have to make to try and say which one is officially better or worse. But most people don't end up reinvesting those tax dollars back just because of our typical American mindsets. So that's why I think the Roth is the better way to go, but I'm not telling you what to do. This is not advice, this is education. No lawsuits. So a Roth IRA, once again, is where you put money in that you're already going to pay the taxes on. So if you put $1,000 in, you're not getting a refund on that $250 come tax day. But the interest you grow over time is all going to be free tax to you. So if you're a really good investor and you put $1,000 in and it turns into $30,000, that's $29,000 you're not paying the taxes on. I'd rather not pay the taxes on 29 grand and pay the taxes on 1 grand. And I was actually talking to someone about 20 years old the other day, maybe related to me, and they were like, that sounds like a scam. Like, are we scamming the government? No, we're not. These systems are set up to give us lower income people advantages. That's why there's an income cap on these Roth IRAs. If you make too much money, you don't get this advantage. Now, it's pretty difficult to make that much money. The average American is not making $200,000 a year, but you could certainly work towards it. And then I hope at that point you're going, yeah, I don't really need that break anymore. I'm okay. I got $200,000 a year coming in. Now, I said your 401k, the most you can put in currently is $19,500 per year. With an IRA, whether it's Roth or traditional, your max is $6 grand per year. Now, these amounts will change over time. In fact, the IRA amount just changed to $6 grand. I want to say in 2018, it was 5,500. Maybe it was 2017, but it was just a few years ago. I'm going to say 2018. It was 5,500. So maybe in a few years it goes to 6,500. I don't know. I can't confirm, deny, or predict that. So your 401k, your Roth and traditional IRAs, these are the best things you can invest into first. And I would say, depending on your mindset, the 401k is the thing you hit at first because you get those cash match contributions from your employer. Then next up, I'd start hitting the IRAs. Some people would say differently. Maybe even in my personal investing, maybe I would disagree with the statement I said. And the reason is 401ks have a much more limited selection of what you can invest to. They'll usually have something like a year plan, like you're going to retire in 2055, so you invest in the 2055 plan. And it's very, very diverse, which is awesome. But it's also maybe a little too safe in your early 20s and maybe even early 30s. Again, maybe too safe. I'm not saying safe is bad. But maybe you notice that you've got a 401k and an IRA, and your 401k is getting you like 9% per year. And your IRAs, because you're maybe a little more aggressive while you're younger, while it's not so bad to lose a bunch of money because you can make up for it later, maybe you're getting 15 or 20% per year because you're lucky or you've researched this stuff, or maybe it's just a good year. I don't know, but there's much more selection with these IRAs. 401ks, again, they have these 2035, 2040, 2045 plans, which are very broad. And then you can invest into small cap, large cap funds, which are basically just different stock plans like your S&P 500 or your small cap version of the S&P 500, smaller companies. Whereas your IRAs, there are literally tens of thousands of different choices. I can speak as a state employee. I have about 12 to 15 choices for my 401k. And they grow, that's good. But again, if I just go to any independent finance company like Fidelity or Acorns or wow, all my terms just left me, Webull or eToro or Robinhood, literally tens of thousands of funds available that I can choose from, and I can do a lot more research and find things that might have, they claim to have had 30% growth over the past 5 years or 10 years. And you go, well, that sounds good. Maybe that's where I want to invest. It's up to you. All right. So what's the difference of these types of investments? Actually, no, one more thing, brokerage accounts before we get into that. Brokerage accounts is something else you can invest into. And I would say this is the last tier at a 401k, IRA than brokerage, because there are no tax benefits with brokerage accounts. The money you put in will be taxed. The interest you get will be taxed. So you go, well, why would you ever invest in a brokerage? Well, there are several reasons. First of all, with a brokerage, there's no age that you have to meet a minimum to withdraw your money. You can withdraw it tomorrow and have no penalties. You can withdraw it in 5 years and have no penalties. So maybe you want to you've saved up money for 10 years and then you want to buy a big fancy house and put 20% down, and you go, well, I got 50 grand in my brokerage, let's use that as a down payment. Maybe that's your decision. And you can do that with no fees. If you try and take money from your 401k, you're going to hit with fees. Generally speaking, there are exceptions with FHA loans and things like that. We're not getting into all the science and details of this stuff. We're doing broad topics. Your Roth IRAs, you can actually withdraw the money you've put in, but not the interest. Your traditional IRAs, that's not the case. That's another advantage of Roth IRAs, by the way. If you put 6 grand in and there's 10 grand sitting in it, you can take that 6 grand out without penalty, but you have to leave the 4 grand of interest in. So these brokerage accounts, once again, you don't have to wait till retirement age to pull the money out. You don't have to wait till 59 and a half or whatever it might be 10, 20, 30 years from now, because these things tend to change over time as our average life extends. So that's one benefit. The second benefit is, all right, you're just a super saver, or maybe you make a boatload of money each year. So you maxed out your 401k, you put 19,500 in that year, and then you maxed out your IRA, you put 6 grand in that. That's $25,500 that you've already invested. You go, well, I still got 10 grand burning a hole in my pocket, and I'm a very, very frugal person. So you go, well, let me throw it in a brokerage instead of throwing it in some crummy savings account earning 0.2%, or a checking account earning nothing, or bonds maybe earning 2 to 3%, which we'll get into in a minute. So again, yeah, you'll pay taxes on the money you invest. So basically the money from your paycheck, you already paid those taxes. And then whenever you start withdrawing it at the end of the year, you'll have to pay taxes on whatever you withdrew. But if you're getting 20, 30% returns, is it really awful to be paying the taxes on that? No, that's insane growth. Now, again, I'm not guaranteeing you can hit that. Maybe you're just going to hit that 7%, but even still, paying taxes on 7% just means you're really getting like 5.5%. Ooh, that's still free money, and that could be a ton of money. So there are benefits to the brokerage account. Here's that thing I said about your Roth IRA, that you can pull money out without a penalty if it was what you put in, but you can't pull out growth, you can't pull out interest. Now you might say, well, Mr. Beckner, how do I tell them that I'm pulling out the money from what I put in and not the interest? It's automatic. It's automatic. That's the cool thing. One last type of bigger savings plan is your college savings plan, the 529, which is tax deferred as well. The money you put in is tax free. So you get that money back at the end of the year, the tax portion, that is to say, not the whole thing, just the tax portion. And that's if you have kids that you want to send off to college in 10, 15, 20 years. You also have, some people will call their, I can't think of the name, the HSA, your health savings accounts, an investment. And you can argue that. I don't really want to get into that details, because HSAs work very, very differently from employer to employer, from a health insurance company to health insurance company, whether it actually rolls over from year to year or not. So I want to avoid that topic. All right, so I keep talking about these mutual funds. Mutual funds are bundles of stocks. Also, there are ETFs. ETFs are bundles of stocks as well. They're literally the same thing, except for one main key feature. There are other differences, but the key feature is when you actually trade them, whether the trade goes in at the end of the day or the second you do it. Mutual fund trades go in at the end of the day. ETFs go in instantly. Most days, there's really not a big deal between them. It's only on like critical days where the market's crashing 10%, or we see some crazy 8% growth that day, where that might make a difference. But they're both awesome. Mutual funds and ETFs, both awesome. Buy as much of them as you can over your life to make lots of money, in theory. Bonds are your safer investments, which have much lower average returns. Bonds are money that you're lending someone else. Well, you go, well, isn't everything else pretty much the same? Yes, but in most cases, bonds are where you're lending the government money. So government issued bonds, and a lot of people think, all right, well, I got to go to the bank and buy this piece of paper. No, you can actually buy these through your retirement accounts as well. There are mutual funds that have bonds in them. There are mutual funds that you can buy that are you owning property, essentially. You're buying a bunch of people's mortgages. So you're arguably owning a very, very small slice of a whole bunch of people's properties and things like that. And again, if all these little details are, and I'm just going too fast, I highly encourage you to go to YouTube or just the internet in general and just Google things like, what's a bond? How do I invest in bonds? What are in bonds? What do they grow like? And there are plenty of people out there that will take much more time explaining things um, and educating you. I just have so much time on my hands. So a lot of people will say, all right, you should be buying bonds and you should be buying mutual funds, and maybe you should be buying some individual stocks as well. That's your retirement plan. Some people will say you need a 30% bond, 30% mutual fund, 30% cash plan. Some people will say you need 50% bonds. Some people will say you need 10% bonds. Again, this depends on how aggressive or how not aggressive you want to be. Bonds are for your not being aggressive phases. So when you're older, when you're retirement age, when you don't want a market crash to affect you nearly as much, maybe that person would want 50, 60, 70% of their investments in bonds. When you're younger and a market crash isn't going to affect you because you're not even going to be withdrawing any money for 20, 30, or 40 years, if you've got $10,000 in and you lose half, now you're at 5,000, that's really not a big deal considering that you're still going to be a millionaire later if you follow the suggestions I've made over this course. And as long as, America doesn't go downhill. But you're not going to become a millionaire on bonds in general, not as easily at least. So again, I'm not telling you to not buy bonds at all, but it is generally accepted that you should be buying more bonds as you age because you want to be safer. As all right, I've got $1 million now. If the market crashes tomorrow, that means I lose $500,000, over a week or over a month or something like that. Maybe not all crashes work that quickly. Some of them take a long time to drain you away. But again, the point is, it's not awful to suffer a crash in your 20s or 30s or even 40s, especially because we have recovered from every single crash we've ever gone through. And usually right after a crash, things accelerate and grow back. So you might lose that $5,000 and then in 2 years, you get every penny of it back. And while you were investing while the market was essentially on sale, you will grow even more. So there's benefits to buying during a crash as well. And again, this is not advice. This is just telling you things that can happen. Go and do your own research and make your own decisions. All right, so I've said these places out loud a few times. One I haven't mentioned before is Vanguard. There are numerous places you can go to get your mutual funds and other retirement accounts with. Vanguard and Fidelity, the two biggest ones in my opinion. Then you've got Robinhood, who really changed the game. It used to be most retirement accounts, you'd have to pay $5 for a trade, and fees and percentages were larger and such. Then Robinhood came in several years ago and said, no, we're not going to charge any fees. Now we're going to lower our percentages. And then everyone else pretty much had to do the same thing. And then you have companies like Acorns, where they'll do this roundup feature where if you go to the store and you put $4.60 on your card, you can use Acorns to just call it $5, and now you've put 40 cents into investments without even thinking about it. And then you've got Webull, who is really cool in my opinion, that they offer a few free stocks, at least at this moment. That's not going to last forever. Robinhood has done the same. And then you've got eToro, which claims to let you copy other people's investment portfolios. I have not looked into this personally. I'm just describing a commercial that I've seen very recently, but I want to research it. I think I've said that more than once. And there's dozens of other companies besides the ones I'm listing. So see which interface you like. You can do this online. Most of them, if not all of them, have apps. This is pretty easy if you don't have any clue once you start your account how to actually transfer money from your savings or checking to your Fidelity account and then actually buy the stocks. Guess what? There's a Google or a YouTube for it. This stuff can be much easier than most people think. Most people get very intimidated by this, between the potential for loss of money all of a sudden, which again, if you're young, shouldn't matter because you're not going to pull money from this in general for another 30 or 40 years, as well as the, oh my Lord, what do I buy? Well, I've already said one of the things you can do is just invest. You could choose to invest in simple index funds like the S&P 500. And all of these companies have something that mirrors the S&P 500. Or you can buy something that mirrors the NASDAQ if you really like tech. Or you can buy something that mirrors the Dow Jones, which is much more the industrial side of things. Or maybe you want to buy things that are all based on medical technology, or maybe things that are just retail. There are bundles of these out there, and you can follow this link to see a bunch. How much time do I have?
And when I was planning this out, I didn't think I was going to have enough time to keep going. Arguably do, but pushing the limits of what we have because I don't like using that last 10 minutes as we've talked about before. So we are going to go ahead and call it a day. We will pick up where we left off. Next time, I'm going to show you some of those resources on Fidelity. We'll take about 10, 15 minutes for that. And then we'll keep talking about this investment stuff. And then maybe we'll talk about the final exam review just a little bit or something. I'm still planning out what I want to do for our last class meeting to get together. So definitely going to finish what we were working on. And then for the last little 30, 45 minutes, well, you'll see what we're going to do on Tuesday. But for now, we know what we have coming up for our assignments, 6.2, 8.1, 8.3. The Chapter 9 homework is available. You can try it out, but I'm not going to force you to do it. Again, I'm not going to count that as a grade, whether you do it or not. Then you have your 2 Excel files, your last 2 quizzes, your project, and then the final exam on the horizon a week from today. Remember, no class on the 29th. We will not have a Zoom class on the 29th. So Tuesday will be our last meeting. Per usual, if you have any questions, you are free to email me. I hope this has been informative. I know a couple of you were chatting with me, either publicly or privately, about how time can make such a difference in this stuff. Knowing what you know now, knowing it 20 years ago would have been awesome. Believe me, I kind of fall into that category as well. I wish I had been taught some of this stuff younger, but as long as we learn it eventually, we have time to correct our path and figure things out. All right, so have a good one, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Take care, everybody.